Assalamu alaikum. You are listening to the Mara Mukwanda show on Salam Media. So, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is commemorated on the 15th of July every year. To tell us more about this is Nasiha Bouata from Darul Shifa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nasiha, shukran for joining me.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Mariam. How are you today? It's good to see you in good health.
Alhamdulillah, shukran, and yourself?
I'm good, shukr, alhamdulillah. Can't complain, not one single bit, despite the COVID-19 out there.
Yeah, no, we just make dua for the blessings that we already have right now. All right, so
Yeah.
World Elder Abuse Day. First of all, what is elder abuse and why is having an awareness day like today so important and so relevant?
Well, look, simply put, let's not do world elder abuse. Let's just do elder abuse. Simply put, elder abuse is, neglecting or mistreating an older person. It's very important because these are vulnerable members of our society. They tend to be our forgotten generation. And so many people, maybe not realize that our elderly, whether they're at home, whether they're being cared for by caregivers, family members, or even in old age homes, there are various types of abuse that they can undergo, in their old age. And we really don't want them as vulnerable members of society to be abused in any kind of shape, form, or manner.
Hmm. Now, how often is elder abuse reported?
Well, look, I definitely cannot give you statistics on how often it is reported. Unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity from my old age home to be able to get those statistics together for you. But what I can say is that from experience, I don't think that it's reported enough. I don't think that people are aware enough of what the abuse actually entails. Because, I mean, it's not just you lifting your hand up to beat an older person, which would be classified as physical abuse. You're using force, you're trying to basically physically injure them. There's financial abuse. For example, you have maybe the elderly at home and the SASSA card is being taken from them. The money that they're supposed to receive from the government to maintain themselves is being used by someone else in the family or by the family, or maybe a domestic worker or a caregiver. And this person is not actually receiving the funds to maintain themselves, put food on the table or pay any kinds of bills, for example. Maybe it's emotional abuse. The person's being locked away in a room all by themselves. They're alone. They're not allowed to come out. They don't get to meet other people and other family members socially. They're living in fear. They're living in distress. So apart from physical abuse, apart from emotional abuse, apart from financial abuse, very sadly, and I don't even want to touch on this topic because it's too sensitive for me, there's sexual abuse. And that is also something that's happening. Most of the time, it's behind closed doors. People may not be aware of it, or it's being hidden away. There are cases being reported. I mean, we've had someone come through our doors, sadly, because of, being abused in a home environment. So it does happen. It does affect this person, this elderly person, on all fronts.
Oh, I mean, we hear of reports of older people being sexually abused by outsiders or perhaps their own members in their families, and many a times we also hear about the financial abuse, like you mentioned, them taking their SASSA cards and going to use it for their own benefits, leaving their elder parents or grandparents out there at home with nothing to eat, which is it's so sad. I mean, like you mentioned again, this is they are the forgotten generation, but they are crucial and they are part and parcel of our community and our society. Without our elders, what would life become? Now, according to the National Institutes of Health, elderly women are more likely to suffer from abuse than men. Why is this the case?
Well, I think it's just society. I mean, you're an elderly woman, yes, but women in general tend to be more abused than men. And those are various factors which we're not going to get into. So it doesn't mean that because you're an elderly woman that you're not going to be abused. And also for the same reasons as maybe any other woman. It's just the nature of how society, unfortunately, has become these days. We are in an old age home, Darushifa in Indonesia. From my experience, I can tell you that we are an all-female old age home. And from the ladies that come through our doors, whether it be for permanent residence, whether it be just temporarily because they're seeking maybe a place of safety, it's for the same reasons that all women get abused. Not only because they're elderly, it just seems worse because they are less physically able to fend for themselves. But it's the same, being beaten, being emotionally abused, being financially exploited, as we said, sexual abuse. So women suffer generally more abuse than that men do. But elderly women, because of being slightly weaker than a younger woman, would experience maybe the abuse from an elderly perspective slightly differently, because they may be not able to fight back in the same way as a younger woman would be able to.
Now, do these cases, if reported, do they ever take priority, or are they just, brushed aside, left under the carpet, like we see with many cases, especially that of gender-based violence?
Well, that, like I said, it's very difficult for me to say. I don't have statistics from the point of view of, social development or social workers, or perhaps from the police station, and that maybe would be a question we should direct to them to tell them from their point of view how seriously do they take these cases. But what I can say from a point of view in terms of the law, elderly people are very much protected. They have a piece of legislation called the Older Persons Act, which came into force in 2006, 13th Act number 13. So what this legislation aims to do is that it aims to protect, it aims to promote and maintain the status, the rights, or the well-being and security of older persons. So the government has definitely put measures in place. You have social development, you have the police station, you have social workers. And let me tell you, they do take it seriously. If I talk about, some of the cases that we are aware of, and this is just personal experience, when that older person eventually does, if it isn't reported by a family member or a friend, or nobody's aware of the fact that the person perhaps is being abused in the home because they're hidden away, and they eventually end up being in hospital, and the hospital notices the signs, of this person having been abused, they will definitely report that, to the social worker, and there are social workers at the hospital. The social worker will investigate this case, and they will take the necessary action in terms of the law, whether it's removing that person, taking legal action or criminal action against the people that have abused this elderly person. In one particular case that I'm going to refer to, the hospital did notice when the person came in that they were physically abused and neglected. That means not being bathed for days, not being fed for days, you laying in bed, bedridden for days, you developing bed sores, like gaping holes in your body, you sort of starving to death. You laying there in the most horrendous conditions, that eventually when you are discovered by someone, or someone says, but I haven't seen this person for such a long time, let me go and just visit this person or pop in, and they find you in this condition and you end up in hospital, where it's actually discovered, the horrific experience that you've had. The hospital will definitely take action, and they will take action like they did against these family members, criminal action. And those people could end up in jail for a very long time. And that is what the Act does. Yeah, it gives older people additional rights. As a citizen, you have your normal rights that each and every one of us does, but the older person's rights gives them, or Older Persons Act, gives them additional rights than what they already have. And I mean, we're using the word older persons, and I think it's important for us to say at this point that in terms of the Act specifically, an older person will be classified, if you're male, as 65 years and older, and if you're female, as 60 years and older.
All right. Well, alhamdulillah, it's a little bit, let me say, heartwarming to know that the senior citizens or older persons, I mean, their cases are taken seriously. Now, how is Darushifa helping the elderly women that are there at the home?
Well, first and foremost, we are a place of safety. We are a female organization, so we want to protect women's rights. We want to protect them financially, we want to protect them emotionally, psychologically as well. And I mean, in terms of obviously from our facility in terms of care, we have very strict measures and protocols in place, because people always have the stigma that if you're sending someone to a care facility, that you have employees or caregivers that are abusing the elderly, and that is a very, very strong stigma that is attached to old age homes. People think that it only happens in old age homes, but it can happen anyway. And not all old age homes are out there abusing elderly people. And I can definitely say that this old age home is a very, very strong fighter against elderly abuse.
MashaAllah. And what about the screening process? The people that work there, do they undergo a screening process to ensure that they are physically and mentally able to look after the older citizens there?
Yes, our caregivers are interviewed and screened, number one. Number two, they have to obviously be qualified and have experience as caregivers. They are also supervised and mentored. So they are not just working by themselves. They're not left alone with an elderly person. Initially, you have to make sure that they have the right personality. Patience is key because, as you know, elderly people tend to test your patience quite often. So patience is key. It's a very, very strong personality trait that the person needs to have. Because when you're dealing with old people, you've got dementia, you've got Alzheimer's, they don't understand sometimes what's happening around them. And I must say, shukr alhamdulillah, we have a set of caregivers at our center that I can honestly take my hat off to the lengths and the extent and the patience that they have and what they will go to. I mean, they are treating these grannies as they are their own mothers, They, even when they're off duty, they're contacting me to say, oh, please remember, this granny, she likes this and she wants to do this and this happened to her today. So make sure that in the afternoon, she gets this type of attention or, those kinds of things. So even when they're off duty, they're still even on duty because they're worrying about their patients. And when you get a caregiver showing you that level of concern and that connection, to a patient, you found, someone really, really good, that will even sacrifice. I mean, even in COVID-19 times, the amount of sacrifice that they're giving, knowing that the elderly person is vulnerable. We can put all our risks and measures in place, sacrificing to a certain extent, their family life and their family time to keep themselves as safe as possible, to come here and keep that person as safe as they possibly can, going that extra mile. Those are the types of caregivers that you try to screen. Not everybody's going to have the same personality. You have to give them an opportunity to actually get to know the personality apart from what you see on paper and the other formalities and screening that you do.
MashaAllah. Now, speaking about COVID-19, how has it impacted on the operations at Darul Shifa?
I think I can't say for old age homes, it definitely has impacted us. And it's impacted us in many ways. From the time that we went into the lockdown, we had to lock the facility down, which means that, the only people coming on and off the premises is the caregivers. So there is always an element of risk with any essential worker that they have to go home to their families and come back to work. In terms of our ladies, we're fighting on two fronts because we're trying our best possible, way of trying to keep them safe from COVID-19. And the pandemic is just growing around us, which just makes it harder and harder. And at the same time, cutting them off means that they don't get the visitors and the community that comes in that they used to before. We're very open organization. So the people in the area and those who are able to come from outside of the area used to visit regularly. So there were set visitors and there were visitors who used to come, as they were able to with time. And the ladies got used to a particular person or, girls from high school coming in the afternoon to sit with them for 1 or 2 hours and chat and have a cup of tea and those kinds of things. And all of a sudden, with dementia and Alzheimer's and maybe old age, all of these people have disappeared, and now it's 1 month and it's 2 months and that's 3 months. And they don't understand, despite you trying to educate them on coronavirus at that age, fully understanding the nature of the virus and what's happening out there doesn't really sink in. And so just having been cut off from the social world and the love and the attention, because in their minds, the staff are the staff. They don't fulfill the same emotional function that maybe somebody else or a community member or a neighbor that used to, who brought them or came with them, whatever, actually does. And not seeing those familiar faces, they now go into a state of depression. And that's what we've been battling as well. They become depressed because they start in their mind saying, well, why have we been abandoned? Where's everybody? Why have they just left us? They don't love us anymore. They don't visit us anymore. They don't come see us anymore. And then they start making all these things up inside of them, and they just start going downhill in terms of a depression. And then you're fighting from another front that affects their health, just this emotional and psychological, situation that's developing. Like, I don't want to eat today. Why must I eat today? What's the point of just being here? Why am I loving now? Nobody loves me anymore. And then you're sitting and fighting two battles. And so our caregivers are, really, I must say, and I take my hat off to them, and I will publicly say this, that they're really, really doing a great job in trying their best to maintain these, two things that are causing our elderly ladies to just, not be okay, at this particular point in time. It's very, very hard for them, extremely hard.
I can imagine, because they had gotten so used to having the visitors around, and all of a sudden it's like things have changed. It's like little kids also.
And ironically,
out. Yeah.
Yes, ironically, I apologize. They're even saying to us, we are the ones, it's our fault. We chased all the people away, and we are so evil. We are just keeping them locked up like prisoners. Why are they prisoners? And so if somebody else doesn't understand that dynamic, from the outside, they'll say, oh my goodness, you're abusing these people. So they don't realize that, there are so many things happening with inside of a home. When you come in and you understand what's happening in that home, then you maybe see that on more than one level, there are many things happening with regards to the elderly. So currently in their minds, we are abusing them because we chased everyone away and we're keeping them prisoner.
But anyway, it's a good thing that you have taken precautionary measures against the virus, because elderly people are most prone to get the disease. So alhamdulillah for that. Now, what can we do as regular people to help the older citizens in our communities, especially now during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we can't go out and visit them?
Well, look, there's several aspects to that. What can we do to help older persons living alone? There's that aspect, husband and wife, they're living on their own. We wouldn't necessarily want them to go outside. So if it's your neighbor, if it's a family member, if it's someone that you've known for a very long time, you can basically help them by trying to say, look, what can I do for you that minimizes, your going out? Do you need to go out for groceries? Can I assist you, in getting groceries into the home? Can I assist you maybe if something needs to be paid or account needs to be covered, your water, electricity, those kinds of things? Because not everybody's going to go onto their cell phones or internet banking and buy a voucher and punch it into the prepaid machine. Some of the elderly people have to go out to the shop, take their little card, buy the electricity, get the voucher, come back. And those are small things, which is big things for them. And it exposes them because now they have to go and interact and get contact with other people, So from a private home perspective, just take note of them, realize that they're there, and think about that particular person and their circumstances and what you can do to make life a little easier for them and to help them to navigate through this COVID-19 pandemic. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe they need somebody just to explain to them what is the COVID-19, how does it work, what are the do's and don'ts, what are the symptoms, what are the signs to look out for. Maybe it's just an educational, situation that you need to do. Maybe, if possible, from a distance, social distancing, teach them. Put your mask on, those kinds of things. Wash your hands. Here's hand sanitizer. Do you have hand sanitizer? Do you have a mask? If they don't have access to those kinds of resources, then they're probably just, exposing themselves even more. From a home perspective, an old age home perspective, I think with limitations in terms of visiting and in terms of contact to the elderly person, I know from our side, we've been trying to do video calls. To some success, yes, but to some, no, because they don't internalize, they're actually speaking to the person. One of the grannies said to me, oh, this photo is talking to me. and they're having a conversation with the photo, but they don't realize they're actually speaking to the actual person. So that
Mhm.
part hasn't come, into their minds. But I mean, even those kinds of things, just to have contact connection, make the time, do a video call, talk to the person. I mean, my phone roams around the whole day. Sometimes I don't even know where the phone is, because the grannies are just making phone calls and talking to this one and trying to just boost them. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
positivity. Sometimes it's just, making them feel good. There's hope out there. Let's take another day. Let's be strong. Let's do this together. You are not alone, basically. And then obviously it always comes down to finances. When it comes to
Mhm.
old age homes, it comes down to finances. I will specifically refer to us just in general terms. When we are an old age home, which caters for frail, and some of our ladies are very frail. We're talking about from 80 upwards, 85, 86, 90-year-olds. Every morning when they wake up, for them, it's a blessing to have another day, because sort of anytime anything can happen. They've got pre-existing conditions. They may be very ill. They may be bedridden. They may need, some of the ladies we actually have to physically feed ourselves because they cannot feed themselves. So for them, every day is a blessing to wake up and have another day. But when the time comes and a few ladies have passed since lockdown period, just because of natural causes or whatever other conditions there may have been, we have not replaced those ladies because obviously with the pandemic, you have to be very careful about the ins and outs at your center, which means that your ladies have reduced, but at the same time, your operational costs may have still remained the same, maybe slightly adjusted, but still potentially remain the same. And so from an old age home perspective, you now sitting with a situation where you may not have the amount of income or donations because everybody out there is having a difficult time that you maybe had before COVID-19, but operationally you still have to make sure that your grannies can eat. That the
Yeah.
water account is paid, that there's electricity, that they're able to stay warm. And I know from our side, Shukr, alhamdulillah, we had donations of little anthracite heaters, which we've installed in our center. But the running cost of keeping the heater going, the coal, the wood, those kinds of things. So those are things that still affect us financially, and the grannies are of no they have no idea of these things happening. So from a financial perspective, yes, that is what affects us as an old age home, because we still have to cover those costs. But we have not, everybody's been sort of just caught up, and everybody's struggling, so it just sort of ripples out basically.
Mm. Oh, well, may Allah make it easy for you and the ladies, as well as the caregivers at Darul Shifa and all other homes that are looking after the elder citizens in our country and are doing a good job at looking after them, because it's not an easy thing to do. And like you mentioned earlier, that it requires a lot of patience, especially having to speak to those that have Alzheimer's and
Yeah,
dementia, having to explain to them
24
every
hours
day,
a day. 24
24
hours a day.
hours a day. I
Yes.
mean, like, for example, wearing a mask, you always have to explain to
You,
them why you have
you
to
know,
wear a mask every day.
let me tell you how hard it
Quickly.
is, because our grannies, they don't know, they don't understand this mask situation. They need to see your face to know who you are. And so initially they would become afraid. They think we're sick. Like, what's wrong with you? Why can you breathe? Is your face covered? And then some of them with like a little bit more dementia or confusion, they wouldn't
Mhm.
allow you to help them because they don't know who you are. So
Yeah.
then you have to actually stand back and like say, it's me, it's the caregiver. And then they'll say, oh, okay, you can help me now. Otherwise, they by just looking at your eyes, they had no idea who this person is. And they'll be like, no, just stay away from me. And they'll call
Oh,
the caregiver to come and help them. There's a strange person here, And so those are like small little things that they had to learn how to overcome. I mean, I have a granny who's currently not speaking to me she chases me away every time she sees me, because she says like, "Oh, Nasika, I'm so tired of you. Every time you come, it's COVID-19, COVID-19. I'm so tired of you and COVID-19." So you have to like try and drill it in all the time, And they're saying, "Oh, we're so tired because every time we come here, then we have to do all these tests, because we do tests on them regularly, checking blood pressure, checking the oxygen levels, checking their heart rates, and they're tired of all this testing, They don't understand, why must they be tested the whole day, all day? What's going on with us?" So from that perspective, yes, shukr, alhamdulillah, we really trying our best to keep our grannies as safe as we possibly can. And, inshallah, we managed to come through, because it's 18, 24 months, who knows how long this is going to be here. And we just want to keep, our rate as being hit by COVID-19 as low as possible. So we have our disaster management protocols in place for ourselves.
All right. Shukran for joining me, Nasiha, and it was a pleasure chatting to you, and may Allah make things easy for you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was Nasiha Botha from Dar Shifa in Lenasia. Well, it is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And Nasiha had a lot to say about World Elder Abuse Day. You can watch the video. It is live on Facebook. It will be on Facebook after this live broadcast. So don't despair if you've just joined us, but also leave your comments in the comment section below, and do stay with us. We will be right back.